If you want to learn more ways to become a professional independent operator, subscribe to this channel. If you want to support what we do, like, share, and turn on that notification.
Welcome to Making Your Miles Count Production, an educational program to all Canadian lease owner-operators with your host, Robert Scaper.
Welcome to Making Your Miles Count podcast, Freedom Convoy Part 2. The second one, we got pretty far the other day, but boy, there's far too many stories to get it all into one. So we decided to split it up into, I guess, several or so. And I tell you, this is it's been a lot of fun, and I think we're going to get a little bit more stories involved in part 2 here. We pretty much got to the point where we almost had left, or maybe we can tell a few things of some of our experiences actually at the Freedom Convoy itself. Some of the things that first of all, we had the relationship with police officers is a good topic to have. I think the first couple of days, you could tell that they were a little apprehensive, but occasionally you'd see one, with their masks on or whatever, and you could tell they're smiling or something like that. You know? But as it went on, even we left Wednesday or something like that, which we were only there for about 6 days, but by then they were totally relaxed. They knew that everything was fine, other than it being cold and clean. That clean was very. Man, I have never seen a street that clean. I never seen a cigarette butt.
Ottawa's never been that.
No. In relation to a terrorist organization, I tell you, the cleanliness of this terrorist organization was ridiculous. It was everybody was so jubilant and happy all the time. There was a fair bit of religious activity going around. A lot of people, prayer groups over here, or there was one guy standing up. He had a microphone or whatever, and he was preaching, street evangelist or something like that. Yep. And all sorts of different ones. And I think we mentioned before too, there was a guy standing there. He had his underwear on, and that was it. Yeah, it was like 30 below, and he was watching, and he was there for hours. Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's dedication, I think. There's
good insulation.
Maybe his blood was a little thinner than normal. But like I said before, I only met one guy who was drunk. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to recognize somebody who is high.
You left too early.
You left too early? Was there a lot of other guys?
Well, there was DJs that set up later on in the convoy, and there'd be parties till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, really?
My block, thank goodness, was known as the seniors block.
Oh, really?
We were the quietest.
Yes.
We followed every rule that was given to us, whatever we were told by the city, but close to the end there, even I was losing control of the people. They needed to do something to vent already.
Yeah. From the leadership, I don't know if I mentioned this last podcast, but some people had the flag upside down, which is the universal sign for
distress, right?
For distress. And they said, "Oh no, you turn it back up and normal again and stuff like this." And there how do I say there in especially a group of that size, you're going to get some radicals in there, some guys who are extremists and with extreme views, and that's I think what sells clicks to the media and stuff like that, and how they portray it and stuff like it. But what percentage of extremists were there?
So I would say less than 1 out of 100.
Yeah, and most of it was more hired by the Liberal government
to
make us look bad. Yeah. Absolutely. The new Queen of Canada. Yeah. She's, the perfect example.
I didn't even actually hear about the Queen of Canada. Yeah. Tell that story.
Right. Okay. Well, we're sitting there one day, chatting with all the people walking by, having an amazing time. And this RV drives right by in front of my truck. And it's all painted up. It's a small little RV, and it has a picture of a woman on there. And it says, something to the effect of new Queen of Canada, Romania Didulo or something like that. And she's asking for donations because she's going to bring freedom to this country. Then she goes up on the hill and burns the Canada flag.
Oh, no.
And they try and blame the convoy. Meanwhile, I start researching her, like, who is this person? We don't know her, never heard of her, no idea what's going on. And right on her website, it says, all donations will be directed at the Liberal government. They will be given to the Liberal government. It said right on her website. Like, you're not even hiding it. You know, but we were blamed, you know, and then a couple days later, all of a sudden things went quiet. But she would drive through. She'd have a complete entourage. She stayed in the hotel I was staying at, and they would block off the elevator and only allow her and her two most trusted advisors to go up at a time. And it was quite the show, but it was quite laughable as well.
I guess when you have a some sort of a spontaneous event like this, there are opportunists, you know. Say,
Oh,
hey,
sure, absolutely.
Like,
This is
What
their
about
chance
the
to-
Confederate flag and the Nazi flag?
Yeah.
The story behind that is very interesting as well. Only one photograph was taken.
Yeah.
You look online, you look at the ownership of that photograph, and it's a Chinese fellow that's worked with the Liberal government as their main parliamentary photographer for years. And he's the only one that got a picture. And when that was taken, of course, it's a still, so you hear no audio. All the truck drivers are yelling at the guy, take those down. And all he's yelling is, this is what's going to happen to Canada if you guys aren't careful. So he wasn't trying to be racist, trying to be anything.
Yeah.
He was trying to show that, you know what, we're going to become this.
He was
Warning
kind of
people.
warning people. Yes.
Yeah. But you don't hear about that on the
No.
news. Oh, no, look at this racist truck drivers.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Now, Ross, we were only there, as we were saying, for 6 days or whatever.
Right.
You were there for 22
22.
days.
Yeah.
Now,
Full length.
So your experience, we were talking about police officers. Ours was very positive.
Right.
They were very kind to us, friendly to us, and
Yeah.
the entire time we were there.
Right.
And your experience is now longer. So what was? How did it change
It
or
it definitely did. There
was there different groups?
Yeah. There was, for sure, there was two different groups. There was also a change in attitude. There was a lot of negative propaganda being fed to these officers because they weren't able to see any of the local news.
Yes.
They were stationed in an abandoned bank up on Queen Street, weren't allowed to watch any media whatsoever.
Okay.
So they were coming out completely cold. They were told, oh, you've got these guys, they're causing issues. You need to go there and steal their jerry cans, or you need to go there and, you know, start smashing windshields and arresting people, you know. Meanwhile, a lot of them, by the looks of it and the feel of it, weren't Canadian, couldn't speak English, were not in a police officer's uniform.
So I know that
you know.
when we saw later on,
Yeah.
there was a whole bunch that had no markings whatsoever.
Exactly.
There was no.
Yeah. And they didn't speak, and they had no problems with using steel-toe cleated boots, kicking children in the legs, kicking older people. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
But the transition now, going from the beginning where we were friendly, we would stand, we would chat with the cops, we'd buy them
exactly.
coffee,
Yeah.
you know.
We would do.
And by the middle of it, like about 2 weeks in, week and a half, they would sit in their car. They would not get out. They would not talk to anyone. We had it at a point because where I was parked was right at the bottom of the hill going up to Parliament.
Okay.
So where the cop car was sitting in front of us on the opposite side was a small flat area, but right at the hill.
Yeah.
Well, an older lady slipped and fell right at their car.
Yeah.
Did they get out? Did they do anything? Did they even open their window and say, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
No. She couldn't even get up on her own. It took other freedom fighters walking by to help her up.
Yeah.
Now, within 10 minutes, I had 6 guys from behind my truck that were basically designated as my cleaning crew. Yeah. They went out with bags of salt, with shovels. They cleared around that cop car till you saw pavement.
Yeah.
And it was nothing but ice and snow before that.
Yeah.
You know, but not a finger was lifted by those heavenly officers.
the first few days that we were there, the initial, they looked in their eyes a little apprehensive. They didn't know what to expect. They were looking and looking, and that. But after a few days, you could tell they were smiling behind their masks.
They were
and their
relaxed.
eyes.
Well,
their
did you
eyes
see
were
what they used to block us off the first week? They were using graders, front end loaders, big D9 cats.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they're noticing, well, these guys aren't trying to rush the lines and damage their $200,000 trucks. So they got rid of all that equipment and brought in just cop cars.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was fine. Nobody rushed it once.
Yeah.
Except for a Bison truck. And I love saying that word because that was so funny. Bison was completely against everything convoy. And one of their drivers got lost trying to get to Gatineau, came right by my truck, went right past the cop car. The cop's like scrambling to get out, trying to stop him because he's got a loaded trailer going straight for the pearly gates of Parliament.
Oh, no kidding.
And I'm taking pictures going, yeah, Bison, you're going to like this one.
From a trucking perspective, the Canadian Trucking Alliance was flat out against any protest. I can understand it. They were a lobby group, and they want to stay on the good sides of the government and stuff like this. So, but in the end, the people did what they wanted to do, and it was a very the thing that I could only stay there for an hour or two before my toes got cold, and we had to go back inside or whatever. But it was an event like. How do you describe it? I think I've been to one football game in my life, and I've never been to a hockey game, but everybody was enthusiastic, and the crowd.
It was a winter fair.
It was a winter fair. It was just everybody was happy, and
but it was after like a 10-year drought.
Yeah,
where it just started raining.
Then there was these waves from Quebec that came in. Like French, the Francophones or whatever.
Yeah, we walked with them that one time. Remember, sang with them.
Yeah,
and
they were
jovial.
Vive la! What were we saying?
Vive la Quebec.
Liberté. That's what we were doing. That was how they. Liberté. Yeah. And I think from myself personally, something changed in me at that time. I mean, I'm from the prairies, and so realistically, it's not that I don't like Quebec people, but there was an overarching kind of a thing that
it brought you together.
Yeah,
it unified.
It united because beforehand I kind of said, well, Quebec is over there, and what do I have? In common with them.
Well, since the 80s and 90s, when there was this whole separatist movement, right? Yeah. Then we, as the West, got a bad taste in our mouth.
Yeah.
And ever since, government has always placated them by more money, more money, more money. We need your votes, we give you more money. Yeah. So they're always in a state of construction. You go through Montreal, you go through Quebec City, they're always in massive construction. They have better highways than anywhere else in Canada. Yeah. But that's what it is.
But I found that in self-reflection, I really realized that I had a not an animosity, but a hesitance towards the French Canadians,
maybe,
and that changed when I went there.
Did. Some of my best friends are now out of Quebec.
Just fabulous. I met a mother with a little daughter, and they were so incredibly sweet.
Yep.
And wonderful. And I'm going, okay, I've been, my mind has changed towards
Quebec is a very scary province from a government standpoint. The people are very afraid of being able to do anything. They are stomped on pretty quick, and we don't hear about it. We don't see it because they're told you don't tell people, you know, and at the convoy, I learned amazing amounts of information about how the people of Quebec are treated by their own government. They are seen.
I think they were way more passionate.
Oh, they were
about liberté than the Anglos were for sure. And I thought, man, we have way more in common than I thought originally.
Well, while we were in Ottawa, there was a protest that went on. I believe it was in Montreal or Quebec City, but I'm thinking Montreal. And all peaceful. They were walking down the street yelling liberté, and everything. Then the anti-protesters showed up, started smashing windows, started looting, started doing all sorts. Who is blamed?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's... Who's a terrorist and who's not? It's something that I think the entire world is having to to grapple with.
Yeah.
Is we don't have enemies like like Hitler and Stalin, or there's no wars
Now
open
they're called
like that.
Trudeau and Biden.
But like there is no country to go to war with anymore.
Yeah.
But now there's these, and they're speckled all around the world. These people who they want something done, and nobody's listening to them, so they throw a brick through a window.
Yeah.
It's the violence that they have, and every like. India has them, United States, Canada, Britain, everybody has these who say, listen, nobody's listening to us, so we're going to resort to violence. As soon as they resort to violence, they actually fall into the category of terrorism.
And they lose all credibility.
Yeah.
You've lost the respect.
Yeah. And that as soon as they do it, like if you look at history, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, where was nonviolent confrontation, they get somewhere, but the other ones automatically get lumped into that, and they cut off their I guess sympathy or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's at least that's what it should. Occasionally, as in some places in Africa, they take up arms and then it's a violent overthrow or so. But realistically, our world has to deal with these, and there's hundreds of groups. Factions that are really terrorists, and they have to be dealt with that way. I think personally, when a protest happens and they burn things to the ground, that is not a protest anymore.
No, that is terrorism.
That is terrorism, and it has to be treated like that. I hate to point fingers about organizations, and if I can blot this out, if I can edit this out, but I would put Black Lives Matter as like what they did in Minnesota.
Yep.
The amount of absolute devastation that they had, and then we have a prime minister who says, "I've participated in Black Lives Matter, and I support them."
Yeah.
Well, why would you support somebody who is it
throwing bricks
basically
off a bridge at trucks driving underneath, delivering what you need to live?
That is
burning buildings,
dangerous.
burning,
looting, stealing,
and
hurting people.
It
burning
only
cars, police cars.
It encourages people to become violent.
Yeah.
Because then you're picking and choosing, and that really is not Canadian.
No.
Canadians do not like violence.
Yeah.
We used to have. The famous word for Canadians is tolerance. We're tolerant of everybody and everything.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit too placid sometimes. But realistically, we're being pulled away from the tolerance, and the animosity is something that you're either in this one group or in that group.
Yeah.
And realistically, you don't have to.
Now you're only tolerant to those people who agree with you.
Yeah.
That's where the tolerance is, right?
Yeah,
if you're outside,
and 4 or 5 years ago, it was okay if you were liberal, I was conservative, you were NDP.
Yeah.
We could be friends. It would be fine.
Yeah.
Did we have political discussions?
Sure,
Not
did.
very often, but
Well,
we could.
sometimes we could.
Yeah, we could.
We could. Now,
Now
there has been lines drawn, and they are drawn deep in the sand. And if you cross that line, families are splitting up.
Yeah.
We need diversity in our government. Like, I personally do
Debate
not.
is good.
Debate
Yep.
is good.
But debate is
Absolutely.
healthy.
Yes.
Conflict.
Yeah.
I went to school, and we had debates in school, and what they would do is they would give out a topic, whatever the topic is, and then you study for your, let's say you were first assigned pro,
Right.
and then you make your argument for that, and then what oftentimes would happen in our debate class, they would say, okay, you studied for pro, yeah, okay, now you're going to be defending the opposite,
Exactly.
and they would do the exact opposite. So now you had
reverse.
to reverse. So you had to know both sides in order to fully be educated.
Right.
But now they got this, it's not a safe place because somebody else disagrees with me.
Yeah.
Well, goodness sakes,
Yep.
It's unhealthy.
The minority
very
rule
unhealthy.
right now. The minority rule. It is. And the
Minority-
majority are afraid.
Yeah. We have to learn not to be afraid of conflict.
Exactly.
That's why I think everybody should be married.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
or at least for a while.
Yeah.
But it teaches you. I mean, you have kids too. I mean, when kids grow up, 12, 13, 18, in that. I mean, the if you don't have conflict of some form, how is the person supposed to learn how to grow?
That's right.
And work through that.
Yep.
But right now, I actually, in my opinion, the most conservative, and I guess you would call me a conservative, but the most conservative government that has ever ruled Canada, the top two were both Liberal.
Yeah.
They were Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien. Now,
Right.
they had opposition leader, Preston Manning or whatever. But realistically...
I don't know if they would view themselves as conservative, though.
No, but they had
their
to.
actions.
But their actions were balancing the budget,
Yeah.
and a lot of the stuff. I don't think either
What other
one
Liberal
of
has ever balanced a budget?
well, Paul Martin did.
Yeah,
He was
but
the
other
first
than
one.
them is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Chrétien was... I would still describe him as a Liberal.
As a Liberal, but
He'd be a gray Liberal.
Really Liberal? Okay, but I said the most conservative government. Okay, so realistically, though, from a government perspective, I don't think the current Liberal government is actually liberal.
Well, and that's,
I think they're
that is a very
extremists.
good point. I
Yes.
think
If you would take Jean
what used
Chrétien
to
and
be
Paul Martin,
described as liberal,
Yeah.
it was more middle of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't right, it wasn't left. It was taking a balanced perspective. Is how they would present themselves.
Same with NDP was originally created was
Yeah.
a good party.
Yeah.
But it has strayed so far and become so
Yeah,
now
but
it's a
And
joke.
now,
but-
now we see more of a socialist perspective when it comes to the liberals. They're no longer centrist,
Yeah.
right? And so I think
and realistic, if you would take if Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien, I don't know if they would ever do this, but if you would ask them, is the current existing Liberal government actually liberal? Do they have the same platform?
Yeah.
And if they were realistic, they would say no, because they have the existing have swung so extreme
Yeah.
that
They're not left anymore. They went to another ballpark.
Yeah, you're just real, and it's sad because we need a balance of conservative and liberal,
Yeah.
and we no longer have liberal. That's
Exactly.
it's my opinion. It's sad.
Yeah.
But I think to a certain degree, people are getting tired of some of the extremes that the existing party is having, and if you look at it from a trucking perspective, I think a lot of people are just waiting it out, and maybe we'll just wait until.
And that's a problem I have, is just waiting it out. The convoy would have been 100% successful if you had another 30-40% of the trucks just turn the key off. That's it. The country, look what happened. I believe it was in the 70s. There was a big truckers convoy. They shut down the country. Took like 3 days, and they got what they needed.
No, I was in one. It wasn't a convoy; it was a strike,
Basically,
trucker strike.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
But that was in the 80s and early 90s.
Oh, okay.
They
I was told something happened in the 70s. I wasn't
old
old enough to know, but
probably multiple.
Yeah.
But this one, I was driving, delivering boats out to Massachusetts somewhere. Northern New York, or whatever it was. I had to go through Quebec,
right.
and in the early evening, I came in, and all of a sudden, just looked I was at the border, or someplace, and there's a whole bunch of trucks parked, and I was thinking, what's going on here? And I slowed right down. Somebody jumped onto my truck and said, "Now you got to go park over there." Well, I got a load that's going to. No way.
Yeah.
And you look at the guy's eyes.
Yeah.
And you realize, okay, if I don't
you
do
don't
this,
say no.
You don't say no. You just listen.
Yeah.
And so I pulled over, and then I started asking around, and I think it was 3 days of strike. I didn't even hear anything about it, and or however long the date was. But the next morning, everybody was yay, 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 and they had, I guess, got whatever they wanted.
Right, exactly.
So it delayed me maybe, I don't know, 12 or 18 hours or something like that. But
and you're still here today. You didn't go bankrupt. You didn't lose every dime.
That was a strike,
Yeah.
you know, in there. But I guess they happen every now and then.
Yeah.
You know, but I think the Freedom Convoy it's not just what it did in Canada, because I think it's really done something great in Canada, but the world,
Yes.
the world saw what can be done. Even right now, we see in Germany.
Well, the U.S. right now going to Texas.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're going to Texas at the border.
Yeah.
They're using the convoy asset.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about the Freedom Convoy, and why it didn't balloon that much in the United States.
Right.
Because there were certain states, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, that really didn't have a whole lot of
there was few restrictions.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't nearly as bad as
Yeah.
and I think from a global perspective, the Freedom Convoy gave a pattern for a lot of different organizations all around the world to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Germany now, but they also had in Holland, like in Netherlands, and that was
And they were flying Canada flags through some of those. That was mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think probably 50 years from now, the truckers convoy in Canada, like Freedom Convoy, will be in the history books.
Yeah.
As a major catalyst for a whole bunch of movements to get government to back down, back away.
One thing about the U.S. convoy is I feel quite strongly that we also were not allowed to see how big it got. Okay, there's a town just south of D.C. where I used to deliver tires all the time, and they actually had multiple 40-acre fields completely covered in trucks for multiple weeks. But there was a complete and utter media blackout. Anything remotely connected to it was deleted off the internet.
Yeah.
Facebook, you name it, has been so thoroughly edited and monitored that, I do think it was a lot bigger than we know and probably will ever know unless you can talk to somebody who was personally there.
Yeah.
You know.
Another major influencer or impact globally, like we one of the things is this is what our experience in Ottawa was. That's what we want to share. But then the media says something completely different.
Yes.
And the other factor when it comes to this media versus reality, I think a huge contributing factor to the propagation of the value of Freedom Convoy is Joe Rogan. Or maybe not so much the Freedom Convoy as much as he opened up dialogue and they couldn't shut him down.
That's right.
That is the biggest factor.
Yep.
Where do you get your news from?
I mean, a lot of different sources. I mean, if you go on Rumble, there's other now different websites that you can go on where they're not restricted. I mean, I still think that when Elon Musk, bought Twitter and transformed it into X, that was a huge deal.
That's a huge,
Because now all of a sudden all the restrictions were off and it could actually be
free voice again.
Free voice of ideas and perspectives that
and
were before were monitored and
if somebody says something wrong or something flat out lie on X, now they have, what do they call those things where they
might have a
forum when they said this has
at
been
the bottom. This is further I guess investigation has proven or has shown that this is the case.
Right.
And then you can either accept it or
they call
or
it
not,
something.
right?
But you
community
get to
something.
see
But you need
the negative comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not deleted.
As an individual decides, okay, which perspective do I believe that this to be true or not? Yeah. Where before you didn't have that option.
That's right.
There was the fact checkers that made the decision for you.
I was deleted off of Facebook for about 2 months. My whole entire history of Facebook was gone.
Yeah.
All my friends had no idea. I just wasn't there at all.
Yeah.
And I got one email saying that they had deemed my account or whatever subversive or whatever the message was. I never posted anything. I've never been one of those overly vocal, kill the government or anything like that. Never. Nothing. But my main picture is me, my wife, and about 5 others from our block in front of Parliament wearing our convoy sweatshirts.
Yes.
That was it.
Enough. That was enough.
That's all it took.
How long ago was it blocked out?
This was maybe 6 months ago.
6 months. That's
Now, the challenge that I see happening is people now get their news siloed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That you
absolutely.
now select who you're going to follow. And so and for most people select people that are, like-minded to them.
Exactly.
And so all the information they get is only ideas that are aligning with their own perspectives.
Except they're not seeing, like, let's say I follow you. Now, I listened to one of your posts, and it sounds like you and we're like bang right on. But you're slightly off and going in this direction, but slow enough, I don't realize, but I keep following. So people are actually shifting views, not realizing what's going on. And it's on both sides of the
but they also might not
fence.
be exposed to alternate views.
True.
Right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
I might follow I might not follow one person. I'll put it this way: one person follows, Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau and all of this, and
Exactly.
they get funneled the news and the perspectives from this type of thinking.
Yeah.
Another person chooses a different group of people to follow. They get completely different perspectives. They get different
totally.
sides of the coin, right?
Yeah.
And I think in the past, when news wasn't propagated this way, you had more of a balanced perspective, right? Because you would trust the news sources to provide multiple perspectives on any given issue, or to try to be as unbiased as possible. Now the news is so biased that you don't even
on both sides.
On both sides,
it is on both sides.
Yeah.
It doesn't
but
matter
you don't
which
really
side.
trust.
You really got to
You
pick
don't
and
trust
choose.
any of the mainstream media anymore.
No.
And actually,
because
personal confidence actually goes down because I know I'm not, there's too much information out there and we get overwhelmed. That's the way I feel. It's like,
How do you know what is truth? If they're just using words and
they also
even
use the
pictures.
same words.
They do,
Every,
especially the mainstream media did that during the convoy.
Yes.
It was like they all got a card in the mail from Trudeau.
Okay, this is how we
this
describe
is
it.
what's going on.
Yes.
And
they all
it was
reported
almost monotone.
word for word. They used the same phrases.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
We grew up listening to Lloyd Robertson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, in theory, I guess you could say he was a little bit left, but you got facts,
Yes.
the real facts, both, and you were able to make the choice yourself.
Yeah.
Now they select
Which facts?
which facts to show to skew the data, and that is really unhealthy.
and
Really
some of it
unhealthy.
isn't even factual. Some of it is simply conjecture.
Yes.
And
But their friend said it, so it must be
yes.
true.
Yeah.
And so the media, it's and I've seen it on the right as well.
Absolutely.
Some of the stuff,
Yes.
I looked at it and I said, hey, you know what? And I do a little bit of investigation. There was one phenomenal thing I see, and there was a thing, and this had to do with the U.S., where Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer both invested in Tesla the day before they made a big announcement about the government giving a whole bunch of money or whatever on there. And they mentioned the date that they invested and the date that it was announcement was. And okay, you know how easy that is to figure out?
That you can research.
Yeah, you can do. So you take a look at the Tesla stock
Yeah.
on that day, and take a look at Tesla stock. It actually went down.
Yeah.
And it's like, how brilliant is that? It actually they're supposed to invest, and then and 5 days later it's actually down. Well, that doesn't make any sense at all, guys. You could obviously tell that it was a fabrication because they didn't even do their research themselves. They should have at least picked the dates that made sense,
No, it was exactly at the convoy. Okay, every time they talked about the blockade in Ottawa, okay, they would use one picture. That was a picture. Just so happened to be where my truck was parked. Okay, but where I'm parked, you're standing in front of the trucks. There's 4 lanes.
Yeah.
Okay, truck,
Empty lane.
empty lane. But they took a picture with a small car sitting there with his left turn signal because he's turning onto a one-way street.
Yeah.
There's the blockade. Look, there's
can't
no
get
open
through.
lane.
Yeah.
Because it's a still picture. You don't
Yes.
see the movement.
But there was always an open lane.
But they
in
took
every
it
street.
while the light was on the guy's flasher. So if you use just a little bit, you know that light's going to go out and come back on again because he's about to drive away. My truck was hit 3 times by local delivery drivers as they would drive by because they didn't know how to properly button hook onto that street. And they would sideswipe my truck. Like I had thousands of dollars in damage, and the cops, they gave me a piece of paper with the guy's name and phone number, but not his company name. And the guy just said, yeah, the cops told me you would call me, but without the company name, you got nothing. Click.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So, yeah.
so. I appreciate Joe Rogan, and I listen to him for his medical advice because he's studied an awful lot of that. He's an MMA guy, kind of
Right. Oh, yeah.
and strong into medical
Fear factor.
Fear factor. That's medical. Yeah, eating worms. Oh, goodness, yeah, sure.
Some of that stuff.
I remember from years ago. That was he was entertaining. He was very a little bit.
I
a little
watched
bit
it,
flash.
hated it, but I watched it like all the time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, amazing. Do you know the difference between, for instance, and this is U.S., but CNN, the highest rating that they have got, it breaks all the records at 700,000 views.
Okay.
And you compare that with Joe Rogan, is 12 million.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's people, the spin-offs and stuff like this, but the sheer volume, it's like 5, 6, 7 times more or 10 times more listening to one than the other. And that's where things are moving. They're moving away from the media because we can't trust them anymore. That is sad. And it only exacerbates the problem because the less you listen to media, the more they depend on clickbait.
Yeah.
And so they will fabricate some great thing to try and get people to click on.
Oh, yeah.
I think
And it's
society
just
as
gets
a whole has become way less trusting. Not just they don't trust the media because they're biased. They don't trust the medical system because they've now come to the conclusion that, you know what, maybe they weren't right on all.
Exactly.
Maybe they were too being also fed a narrative that, and whether it was, incentivized by money or whatever, you don't trust the government, right? Because you used to be able to, put your faith in the government. So all of the foundational blocks we can trust the media, we can trust the medical system, we can trust our government to look after our best interests. I think a lot of these solid foundational blocks have been rattled. They've been cracked. Yeah. And people are now, and I'm just generalizing, of course, are not finding things that they can put their trust on, or they become wary even on things that are true. Yeah, they don't trust that they're true. Exactly. Right, and so now to some degree that's healthy, because people are now maybe taking more responsibility.
Using a little more of this and not just what they see in
the CBC said it, so it's true. Now they're doing their own, well, I'm not sure about this. I'll do my own investigation. Your medical system is telling you this is true. Well, I'm going to do my own research and see whether...
Google has changed.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Because people have more access to information than they ever before. Yep. Right? And so, to some degree, I think it's very healthy. But it has changed society. Over the last, 4 years, we've seen a huge shift in society as far as what they put their faith
and trust in, for sure. That's amazing. My view of the medical system, well, some of the stats, a stat that is staggering, 60% of Canadians do not have their own family doctor.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the United States... Well, first of all, per capita, Canada has an unbelievably low amount of hospitals.
Right.
I can't remember what the stats on it, but we are just...
And the more we immigrate, the more the lower that percentage goes.
The amount of people per hospital bed or whatever is unbelievable compared to other other countries and stuff like that. So our system, our medical system is, how do I say, it is underperforming before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just Googled, quality of healthcare by country.
Right.
When Cuba rates considerably higher than Canada for healthcare.
Wow. And I've gone through Cuba from one end to the other, and it's not a beautiful place.
You wouldn't
in a
put
lot of
that,
areas.
it's clear that they would be ahead of us.
Yeah.
But
it's surprising with the familial connection.
Costa Rica is better than Canada, right? By the way, we're not according to this article, the United States was much lower than Canada. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
But not that, a lot of Canadians would, especially, 5-10 years ago, Canada's healthcare was the best in the world. If everybody could have, all countries could have the same healthcare as Canada, the same perspective, the world would be a better place.
Yeah.
I don't think most Canadians would see that today.
Yeah.
I mean, we were unfortunately had to spend this last week several days in emergency, and when you go to a hospital and you see, there's a 10 3/4 hour wait.
Yeah.
When you go to the emergency room, that's what your wait is,
God.
right?
Yeah.
And when you finally get admitted in, and there's beds, they're in hallways, they're in chairs, and you ask the nurse, he said, well, this particular hospital that we were in is designed to have a 32 bed capacity for emergency, right? But they're dealing with 60 to 100 when they're designed for 32.
Yeah.
That means that there is 28 people at minimum.
They're
not in a room.
Yeah.
They're in the hallways at minimum, but it could be 70.
Yeah.
It could be 70 people that are just, in the hallway, in chairs, in the emergency room. So you're absolutely right. Our medical system, and by the way, I don't have a very easy answer that this is going to solve it. But one thing we do know, it's not the star of the world.
No.
Yeah.
It's not that we want, if only the world could have our medical system, because I think right now, we would all say that there's something has to change. This isn't working.
No, it was definitely bad before COVID. COVID definitely drove a lot away as well.
Yeah.
I had a family member in a hospital in Winnipeg recently, and the one night nurse there actually moved from BC because she was fired, refused to take the vaccine.
Yeah.
So she moved to Manitoba and was actually able to get a job. I guess through the moving transition is when Manitoba kind of lightened up, and then all of a sudden jobs were more available. But I feel so bad for a lot of our medical industry as well. They're just,
I feel sorry for them.
the nurses are so overworked.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
You know that in Manitoba, and I only know this from stats, we have clients, well over 500 clients, and statistically, a truck driver is, in Manitoba anyway, 3 to 4 times more likely to marry an RN, like a registered nurse, than the general population.
Makes sense, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's totally unusual.
Yeah.
But I have could be 15, 20. I had before COVID. I had 15, 20 truck drivers who had RNs.
Right.
Well,
Spouses.
statistically, that's way out of whack.
Yeah.
And so I talked to a lot of them or whatever. I do know that I know for sure 3 or 4 of them through COVID just said, forget it, I'm out of here. And they just quit the entire industry completely. And the frustrations that they have, because it wasn't overload that got them to quit. It was the bureaucracy that they had to deal with in there. Because if you give somebody a job and they have unbelievable purpose, like they're saving lives and stuff like this, they don't burn out.
Yeah.
Because they have a continuous, like, I'm contributing.
Yeah.
But when you get into a system and that system stops you from your purpose,
Yes.
That's when people burn out and get frustrated and say, "Oh, why in the world?" am I
Completely
doing this?"
against your training, against all logic.
Yeah, that's and I know very specifically, like there's 3, and depending, could have as much as 4 of them, which is significant amount of them. 20% of them just leave, and it's not that the other ones, love their job. It was stressful on everybody, and it was just basically a bureaucracy that created rules. And you have unions fighting with bureaucrats, fighting with politicians, and you get absolutely nowhere. In my personal opinion, I think Canada, in order to solve their problem, one of the things that they need to do is open up competition, bring in private MRI, CAT scan, or CAT scans and stuff, so that
the crown corporations. I'm tired of them.
The monopolies is what creates the conflict for sure. I'm a big I like Dr. Edward Deming. I'm a fan of his Six Sigma philosophies, and he changed basically Japan from a low producer to a high producer right after World War II. I'm a big fan of his. I wish I knew more about the factors of Six Sigma, but realistically, one of the tenets is if you put people into an organization and you're getting the same results, the problem is not the person, the problem is the system itself. And the system creates the inefficiency, not the people. People want to do a good job. Inside, there's very few people who go out there and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to really suck at my job."
Exactly.
Everybody wants to do a good job, but the bureaucracy and the protocols and the things that they are restricted on, that's the frustrating aspect, and they get the same results all the time. There's have you ever heard of a guy by the name Engelbert Schemmelweis? Oh, if I butchered the name, but it's very close. It's a German doctor in the 1800s, and this was long. It was before you had microscopes and stuff like this, so they didn't know about bacteria and viruses and stuff like this.
The guy with washing.
Washing the hands. You heard of him?
Right.
And realistically, he was in charge of a hospital, and he basically saw the protocol for the doctor was they do first thing in the morning they do autopsies on the people who died, and then they do what do they call it? They take examinations of the living, and then he found there was a correlation. Wait a minute, this person died of XYZ, and then 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, this person died of the same thing, and he saw a
They didn't have gloves. They didn't have
no gloves, no washing hands, and nothing like that, no soap. And so he instituted washing of the hands.
But how many years did it take?
Yeah.
It's okay. So you wash your hands, and then he found the mortality rate dropped like crazy, and people started, because back then
but it took years for him to get this to be changed.
To get any respect of it. He was basically called a heretic.
So his numbers went down, and because there was back then, you go to the hospital, you're going to die. You got a 50% mortality rate at a hospital.
Back to that again.
So then all of a sudden, everything was doing good, but the doctors rebelled. Underneath him, the doctors rebelled, and they didn't want to wash their hands between stuff. And finally, they were successful in booting him out. So he went to another hospital, and he did the exact same thing, the exact same results. And again, the doctors said, "No, we don't like washing our hands." But back then they didn't know about bacteria or anything like that.
Exactly.
So there was an argument both ways, and and realistically, in the end, he dies in a mental institution because he was such a sensitive guy. He had the solution, but people didn't listen, and that's when you have peoples with certain mindset and protocols, and it kills people. It's very sad. Okay, getting back to week 2 after we had left, what was the big deal with the jerry cans? What happened there?
Well, they needed us to leave. Trudeau wanted us to leave in a bad way. The mayor had no problem. We were we were talking to the mayor literally on a daily basis.
Yeah.
What do you need us to do? What would make your life somewhat easier? And we did, no honking during these hours, stop honking altogether. All they had to do was ask.
Yeah.
Court order wasn't needed at all. We followed every single rule, but a court order made news.
Yeah.
It made news. And so then all of a sudden, cut off all fuel, because we had trucks coming with big slip tanks that would fuel up our trucks to make sure you're minus 20, minus 30, minus 40, whatever. You need fuel in a truck.
Who paid for those? Who paid for the fuel?
I have no idea.
No idea.
I have actually Imperial from Quebec came. I still have a hat from them. They gave me a hat as they came with a big slip tank with thousands of dollars worth of diesel.
Oh, yeah.
And they just started filling whoever needed.
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely no. And then other people, guys on my block, young kids, took whatever money they could get together and would take their car out of the lineup, drive down to whatever fuel station, But then there was a point where they had to go farther and farther. Cops were sitting on the parking lots of every gas station. Who are you filling that jerry can for?
Oh, yeah.
Are you in the convoy? They'd look at your license plate. You're not from Ontario. Why are you,
Yeah.
And
so they stopped trucks from coming in and fueling up.
Oh, 100%.
And then and that's when they started bringing jerry cans in.
Yep. Then the jerry cans started coming, and then I'd almost call it the Gestapo came one night, like a group right on my block, because we had probably 300 jerry cans in the parking lot right next to our trucks, and they came, and luckily those were our empties. With only a few full ones, all underneath all of our trucks were all the full ones.
Yeah.
Well, when you're told one thing and you're in a job where you basically just do as you're told, basically military, okay, that's all they did. They went straight to that parking lot, surrounded all of our trucks in an L shape with their backs to us. So while they're loading up all these jerry cans, all by myself, I've cracked everybody's fuel tank, and I'm dumping every full jerry can into it. While they're literally 5 feet away from this supposed officer right in front of the nose of my truck, I'm filling up the next truck and then my truck. And as they were leaving, they had a whole half-ton full of jerry cans. I said, "Hey guys, thank you very much for cleaning up the empties. Do you mind bringing back premium?"
Yes.
And there was 3 Snickers and one shut up, beep beep, but it. So you made fun of whatever situation, because the next day the farmers came with 4-liter milk jugs all full of diesel. And we had 180 milk jugs underneath our trucks.
Oh my goodness.
So did it work? No. It brought people even closer and brought more people into the picture, because then it was only a matter of days when tractors started driving up along our trucks, and they were just about forced out at gunpoint though by the cops. They were put into a little parking lot. Don't ever let us see you again, So that was too bad. But the day they came was also it was a day of celebration. The farmers are here, and it's, that was a crazy time.
And then it transitioned.
Yep.
So this would probably be in the 15th to the 18th day kind of thing.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden things changed.
No, then we had a whole new, it was almost like a whole new race of police officers came.
When did the bouncy castle come in?
I'd love to comment on that, but I was around my truck all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't spend a lot of time. I heard about it, heard about the ice hockey games. I would have loved to join it, but my truck, by absolute happenstance, was parked in the prime spot for almost everybody. I would say 70% of the people that went up on the hill walked by my truck. So questions, hugs, smiles, you name it. The only people that honked my horn were the little children, and I've got pictures to prove it. The parent, I would open my door, they would prop their kid up on my knee, and they'd take pictures and videos and nonstop. I was there 18 hours a day. I got hardly any sleep. Got so sick at one point I thought I had COVID. It was malnutrition. 36 hours no food. So, yeah, that was a whole nother story. Getting a prescription for antibiotics, go to the local pharmacy and get kicked out of there being screamed at, you filthy animal.
Yeah.
You know? So,
It's very divisive.
yes.
Very divisive.
And I feel that was very planned
Yeah.
because it's continued.
It's like you either were incredibly embraced
Yep.
or just unbelievably rejected.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
Like, were you there when they the Emergencies Act?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So then
Yep.
what happened then?
Well, after the bricks fell out of the bottom of the leg of my pants,
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, we were very worried because what's going to happen next?
Yes.
Look at what they've done so far. And it got to a point where from the core leaders of the group, we were given one phone number because we were getting all sorts of orders from phone numbers and we had no idea who it was coming from.
Yeah.
And some of them made no sense. Like, we're all leaving now. Everybody just get out of Ottawa.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nothing's happened. Nothing was going on yet. So then it got down to this is one number.
Yeah.
Whatever comes through here is what you got to do.
Yeah.
And even that number was hacked. Like,
Okay.
you know, it was very confusing.
What do you mean by number?
Well,
like a phone number?
a phone number. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You know, and it was like almost like a community cell phone that was left there on the desk. Well, somebody grabbed the cell phone and started typing in propaganda that was totally against what everyone else.
Text
Oh, text messages.
Yeah,
Oh,
text
I see.
messages.
Well,
Yeah.
I would question: did the government?
Well,
started
and
using-
I'll never know.
Yeah.
I'll never know at this point. You know, it's but yeah, no, then when they started coming and they started clearing streets, there was the point. You know, they tried to hire tow trucks.
And they wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody would do it. They threatened towing tow truck licenses. They had to go almost 100 miles into the U.S. to get any tow trucks to join.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, that's when windows started
I
getting
think
smashed.
a lot of people were terrified, not
Yes.
only at the convoy,
Yeah,
because there was how many people, millions of people, maybe not millions, but there were lots of people that donated to the GoFundMe.
Oh, yeah.
there was
Yeah.
fear
Right.
over that. Yes, what's
And
going to happen to
and
my
now
account?
they
A couple
had-
100,000 people.
Yes,
Yep.
and now the bank accounts were being seized
Yep,
Yeah.
from as a result of the Emergencies Act.
exactly.
And I mean, I know some people were terrified that they would not be able to pay their bills. They would not be able to buy groceries. They would
Yeah.
not
And
be
some
able to make
people
their
didn't.
mortgage. And
Yeah.
some
Like
people didn't.
when it was
Yes.
frozen or whatever,
Yep.
they did.
So
Yep.
I think there was a terror that went not only to the people in Ottawa, there was a terror
Around the globe, basically,
well,
because of the
across
control.
Canada.
Yeah,
And
but
for
there were
any-
people that donated everywhere,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So how far, if Canada can do this in their central city,
Yeah.
what can they do to me in China or whatever? You remember the comment that the leader of China said during the Emergencies Act? Even I can't get away with this.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, now the courts have now stated, or at least the judge stated that
It was illegal.
it was illegal, it was unjustified.
Yeah.
Which I did not really have any faith.
No.
in the
that-
judicial system.
the
I didn't
judicial
either.
system.
I still don't. He can say that.
Yeah, okay, but how do you
You know.
justify then that a judge came out and actually said it's unjustified?
Yeah.
How do you
Kudos to him.
Good.
But that's happened at least what,
Almost at
2-3 times throughout Trudeau's reign. He's been found guilty
Yeah.
of things. S&C Lavalin,
Yeah.
Wee scandal.
Yeah.
What did he do? Okay, as soon as Emergencies Act came out and everybody started screaming at him, look at Ukraine.
Yeah.
Look what Russia's doing to Ukraine. Everybody look at Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is, well, he has obviously a group of people working with him, but they are very adept in sleight of hand, basically changing focus.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's. I know there were some, for instance, that I know of certain financial institutions. I'm going to say that way.
Yes.
That the order came in from Ottawa, and there were people on the board because this went to the board level.
Yeah.
That they said, well, you know what? Let's wait this out,
Yeah.
and they didn't do anything.
Yep.
And then 7 days later it was reversed. But
Yeah.
some of them they started grabbing, like
TD
Royal.
Before the order came out,
What?
they froze our funds.
Your personal funds?
No. Sorry. The donated. What had been happening is is they were going to be, the core group was going to be flying in some lawyers from Alberta that were going to be working with us to try and help straighten stuff out.
Yeah, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
Likely I don't think these lawyers could go on a commercial flight.
Exactly.
Right?
So
they had
needed
to
to get a private plane. So they were transferring. They made an arrangement with the TD Bank.
Yeah.
They were transferring $1 million.
Yeah.
Not a problem, not a problem. It'll be ready for you right away. They transferred it. Boom, account frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The government, we need to investigate where this money came from. And then the Emergencies Act came, and then, oh, look, the FBI has now stated that this is a terrorist organization because any money that crosses a border can be deemed as such. So, of course, American citizens, Australian, all over the world had donated to this. So now it must be a terrorist organization.
I wonder why they don't label George Soros as a terrorist organization.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because no brick, he doesn't physically throw bricks himself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So there were multiple days where we got together as just our block.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to stay? We'd pray about it. We would talk about it. There were days where I was done. It's like, you know what, guys, we need to just. I've got a $200,000 truck here. You guys all came with the worst truck you had on the yard. Like, some of them, I'm surprised they made it home.
Yeah.
But so some had a little more skin in the game, And did I lose money? Absolutely. Well over 20 grand. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. If it was the first time. After it's done, it's kind of done. You can't keep having over and over and over all the splinter factions, but that's for another day. So that is where the stress level got very high. Sleep got very low.
At what point did you decide? Were you told to leave by the organization, by the leaders?
No.
No. You actually...
We found out, the night before is when we were told that poor woman that had been trampled had died.
Yes.
So that's when I brought in all my winter gear, my steel toe boots. I was going up on the line and I was going to teach some lessons, right?
Yes.
Well, thank goodness that never happened.
Yeah.
I think I would have been the only Canadian who actually would have done it then, and that would have been bad. But anyway, so we had all talked about it. No, a lot of people had left Ottawa.
Yeah.
It had thinned out, but a lot of us were still there.
Yeah.
But overnight, into first thing that morning, is when the Goon Squad came out. And they were pushing hard. They were smashing windows, towing trucks, pulling guys out of their bunks that were sound asleep, and arresting them.
Yeah.
They would leave these trucks in an open lot, running with the doors open during a blizzard. These trucks drained of fuel, totally demolished inside. They tore off license plates, just so you had no insurance. I wouldn't have cared at that point. I would have driven home with no license plate, but whatever. So that morning, I had been up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, just watching all of our trucks because we didn't know what was coming down. Then I finally go to sleep. Well, of course, I slept in. Come out at about 11 o'clock, noon or something like that. We're literally the only single block in all of Ottawa left.
Oh, everybody else is
Everybody is gone. It's a deserted island.
Oh.
And I come out, and my whole block is all packing up, and I'm like, send me a text, guys.
Yeah.
Block captain here. Hello. So I'm furious at this point because I had no idea what was going on. Like, which room I'm in. I've been there for a month. Knock on my door, anything. So me and my wife, we're like packing up, throwing stuff in garbage bags. We have a month's worth of donated knickknacks and you name it. We didn't want to leave anything behind. I had to pay my exorbitant bill at the hotel. I get into the truck. Truck's now all warmed up. All the snow is cleared around it because the guys just the night before had packed a snowbank around all our trucks, poured water on it so it froze solid. That way, tow trucks going to have a little bit of a harder time getting to the front of our trucks, right? So now they got to dig all this out. Get into my truck. Finally have my windshield clear of the 300 little notes and stuff. And just about ready to put it in gear. I'm on the radio, letting everybody know we're all good to go. And I had to be the number one truck to leave. Officer comes up to my window and he goes, "You're not going anywhere." And I look at him. I'm like, "Excuse me?" 22 days. You guys have been trying to get rid of us.
Why?
Well, you got to show me ID and sign a paper saying you'll never return. like hell I do.
Yeah.
And a few other words and a few very choice ones.
Yes.
And I ended up saying, you're an embarrassment to your badge.
Yeah.
I said, don't ask me for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Go home to your family and ask them,
Yeah.
because you'll never get it out of me. And I said, you're 2 officers in front of my truck. Better move now or they become traction.
Yeah.
They dove for the snowbank.
You revved it up.
I put it in gear and I'm gone.
Yes.
And the cops ran and encircled all the other trucks. I didn't see it though. I'm looking ahead.
Yes.
I'm looking at the road.
Yes.
Slip and slide, and it's nothing but slushy snow, and so I'm spinning away. And
Now, was there a path out? Like, how did you get
well,
out?
I need to be careful how I'm going this route here.
You know a guy.
I know a guy who did this.
Okay.
And so he's driving. He's pulling ahead with his truck all by himself. Everybody else is locked up. And he's going across in front of the hotel, and there's nobody there yet, but makes a left turn just on the other side of the hotel, heading back south towards the Trans-Canada Highway. Okay, it's 10 blocks. All the lights are turned off, so they're all red, solid red. There's officers at every light. There's officers now behind this truck. There's officers trying to come on each side. The truck is swerving up the one side, down the other,
And
back
this guy
and
made
forth.
it out of there.
This guy made it out somehow. I would personally like to say by the grace of God,
Yeah.
because this guy did not feel like he was even driving. His whole body was nothing but tingling.
Yeah.
Looking in the side mirror, seeing cop cars darting out from each intersection, trying to hit this truck off the road, this far from fuel tanks.
Yeah.
And a fire truck comes right across in front, and the eyes just go wide. But luckily, he was told the next block, so he comes to a skidding stop, tries backing up while the truck takes the curb again, goes up and around.
This guy's truck kept going.
This guy just kept on going.
Wow.
Gets to the Trans-Canada. It's now a left one-way. Okay,
Yeah.
You're underneath the Trans-Canada, actually, the overpass. Construction. 3 lanes going down to 1. Bumper-to-bumper traffic. Adrenaline, never been so high. This poor guy, I'm surprised he didn't faint. The person sitting next to him in the jump seat is screaming, "This is Grand Theft Auto, we're all going to die." And I'm figuring, this person is figuring to himself that this is going to be a very difficult conversation here. 10 red lights, what's one more? The traffic, that's another story. What's going to happen? Lays on the air horn, just pulls it and holds for dear life, starts driving. Moses must have turned up somewhere on the other side of the street because the traffic parted, literally parted. Truck pulls in,
guy keeps going.
7 cop cars with sirens, lights, you name it, stopped at that intersection. The cars encircle the truck. Don't allow a cop anywhere near, and just motors along at real speedy 30 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
And that was how
So the
person
people
got out.
helped the guy get out.
100%. This city that hated us.
Yeah.
Okay. We had a map in our central area showing all the donated rooms and showers and bathrooms and meals and whatever. The city of Ottawa was a big black dot.
Yeah.
You would have needed to zoom in to see individual little houses that did not support us.
Yes.
And there was not many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not what the media.
Oh, of course not.
Oh,
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
The day we got there was proof of it. They funneled us into little individual streets all over the place and only allowed media to film one street. Oh, look at this huge convoy of 20 trucks. Yeah. No. First day and last day were quite memorable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what did we actually learn from the Freedom Convoy or the global shutdown? I think probably the biggest thing, at least that I took away from it, is that never underestimate the inefficiency of government to handle a problem, because our medical system, I think, maybe is 50% what it was before.
Yep.
And it's really, really sad. I personally had to take my own health differently. I could not, I was, I think I've said this before, I was ready to take a vaccination for the sake of my business and my employees.
Right.
Today, if it would be all over again, I'd probably do something similar to it. I mean, there's not going to be a COVID-20, but realistically, I would do something similar to that to keep my employees safe or living, so to speak, because I'm not independently wealthy. In there, I'm dependently wealthy.
Exactly.
That's like, I mean, I have no choice, and I really admire the truck drivers who took the vaccination because they had to continue to support their family. They had to, and I respect that, deeply respect it, and I think I would support them in their position,
in their future healthcare needs.
Now, the real question is, if a similar situation would come along, would they trust a pharmaceutical company for their own health in the future? I think a lot of it has to do. I think we talked about this before. Do people trust the boosters and the vaccinations and stuff like that now?
If you just look at statistically how the uptake is plummeting, I don't think it would show that people don't trust. The pharmaceutical industry.
There are some podcasts that Joe Rogan has talking about the aftermath of some of this stuff. It is a little bit terrifying, the statistics on this, and he blasts the
holds
guys
nothing back.
You know, when we were in Ottawa, and I was marveled, like when we were talking before, where O'Toole steps down, and all these premiers start opening up.
Liberal members moving over to the Conservative side.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that are going on, and I'm going, this is actually has the first time in my life I've ever seen a protest actually produce something positive. It was so dramatic. I was shocked. And I thought, realistically, I mean, I like going to Mexico for winter. We don't do it every winter, but every other winter about. And I thought, well, I can travel again in a couple of years. You know, and I think we should be out of this in 2 years, I figured. 1 year, almost to the day, actually less than a year, from when me and you went to India. We went to our employees.
How many months later we could now fly again? And
exactly.
And realistically, I think it was my son. I'm this is a little hazy, but I think my son had a Pfizer vaccination. Okay, and his status going into, if he would have gone, his status going into India was the same as mine, because they didn't even recognize. India didn't never recognize Pfizer
good for them.
vaccinations. And actually, they're kicked out of India, which says huge.
It does.
If one of the things that I got worried about, like when I made the mental choice, I would take the vaccination. Now the next step is which one, you know?
Yes,
and
that was a decision.
To me, I said, okay, now which one? Pfizer, Moderna, and all these other ones, and I'm doing the research. Maybe I'm a little bit more detailed and trying to decide which one. But a lot of people just said, I don't care what, and then they just put their arm out. Okay.
And then that screwed them later on. My brother had one of each of two kinds. And then all of a sudden became unvaccinated.
Exactly.
You know?
There was some countries, can't remember which, I think it was Sweden and a few other ones that said, we do not recognize any Canadian citizens. You can't fly to our country because their medical basically what they're saying is the medical system screwed up so bad it's not appropriate. Because we had clients getting the first shot in North Dakota and the second shot out in somewhere else. There was no consistency anywhere in what they're. That is a classic example of a bureaucracy totally screwing up, and we know some people who bought vaccination. What do you call it? Vaccinated status. You just
like a card.
Vaccinated card. You can just buy it.
There's Mexican doctors. There was one in BC.
There's one in Edmonton that I know of. And realistic. I mean, I thought about it too. I didn't want. I don't know if it was so much lying that as much as I didn't. I figured I'd just wait 2 years and something's going to bowl over. Exactly. When it comes to Canada getting vaccinated. What was it? Was it 85, 86% of the country was vaccinated, or is it 80?
I don't know if I could believe a lot of the polls that were out at the time.
Because we had one of the highest in the world. Israel was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But
it depended on what statistic, because you would have some statistics based on who the first one. Some if they had got the second one, right? Yeah. Then they were considered vaccinated, right? Yeah. And so I don't know what the number is. I mean, I don't think it was quite that high that were considered fully vaccinated. Yeah. But
the thing about any type of movement in a country or election in a country. Do you remember years ago when Vladimir Putin got elected as the Russian president, prime minister, whatever he is, or whatever? He had 97% of the population vote for him.
Yeah.
If we think about it, the first knee-jerk reaction inside is, yeah, right. 97% never happened.
Yeah.
Because in a truly democratic society, you will never get anything more than 80, 85%.
Exactly.
So 97, is doctored.
Yeah.
And realistically, to imply to any citizenry of a democratic, we're going to have 100% vaccination or 95% vaccination. Everybody, that is unrealistic. You will never get that.
Yeah.
Never. I read a biography of Winston Churchill called the something in the vial, the splendid in the vial, and it talked about the blackout of London during World War II, and everybody had to black out their houses so that Germany didn't know where to bomb London.
Black out the windows.
Black out the windows. What did I? Yeah, okay. Black out the windows so there was no lights. Everybody had to turn their lights off.
Yeah.
And they made this edict. It would be a mandate, I guess, on there, but it wasn't enforced because the government allowed people the freedom of personal choice,
to get bombed or not.
To keep the lights on or not.
Yeah.
Now all of the neighbors around them put, I'm sure, severe pressure
on them.
But the government, there was some people who just refused to black everything all out.
Yeah.
And the Churchill at the time just basically said it is their according to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, they have the right not to do it. Now, it put themselves at danger and everybody around them at danger. And back then, you take a look at the difference in the Charters of Rights, how it was applied back in 1942, 40, whatever it was, 43, and right now, and just on a vaccination perspective, the Charters of Rights and Freedoms has eroded.
Yes.
So much more, and now I think the world is moving more towards freedom than ever before. It's a polarization. There's people who really want power, but there's more and more freedom. And people are pushing back on taxes, on government control, and stuff like this. And you're seeing it not just immediately, from the COVID, but now even taxes, like what Germany, we were saying Germany and Holland and all these other countries, they all have these protests going on, and they're pushing back on taxes.
Exactly.
And it started a movement for freedom around the world.
And personal responsibility.
That's it.
One thing that has changed is people are taking more responsibility. They're not looking at the government to supply all their needs. While the government would love to be, like certain people in the government, certain mindsets of the government say, like a guaranteed income for everyone, so that, right? Yeah. But then there's other perspectives of the government says, the more that the government controls, actually the worse it is.
Yeah.
And so we have to take responsibility. Well, it's great that Canada has, the Canada Pension Plan and OAS and so forth, but you have to take responsibility for yourself, for your retirement, for your own savings, for how you spend your money, for your own health care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to take your own responsibility. You don't just well, whatever the doctor says, I won't exercise, I won't eat healthy,
Yeah.
because there's always a pill that will solve all my problems
Yeah.
that the doctor can prescribe, right? I think there has been a shift, and maybe it's still shifting.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a healthy shift.
I think so.
That,
Yeah.
for personal responsibility.
Yeah, I agree. Personal responsibility. I've always, especially from a financial perspective, I RSPs, TFSAs, that kind of thing. It's government influenced retirement stuff or whatever.
Regulated, yeah.
Do you really want to have the government regulating every single thing that you have, or do you want to build wealth apart from government's influence and control? I guess a lot has to do with how independent a person.
Well, I think that goes even beyond to CB. What do they call it? Or digital currencies, right? Where the government can basically do whatever. You see in China, they have a credit score, and so if you jaywalk, your credit score goes down and so forth, right?
Or if they see you post on social media, you're going to a protest, boom, you can't buy the next train ticket. And that happened.
And so even with currency, as in physical dollars, having paper money,
taking that
right?
away,
taking that away. I think there's a lot more apprehension. Okay, maybe there's not healthy for a society, because it allows the government to be more controlling of its people.
Yeah.
That you could very easily slip into tyranny when you give up.
The government has all control. They've already put themselves above the church. That never should have happened. It was always church, government, people, right?
Well, is it the government putting themselves that way, or do the people
put them up there?
Allow them
right
to put them up there too?
Yeah.
It is. I think the change, for instance, has to first start with us, individual drivers. Now, this Making Your Miles Count podcast, the majority of people who listen to it are independent operators.
Right.
They come from a stance of, okay, I want to determine my own financial success.
Yes.
And they have in them
self-determination,
independence, that drive.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we're, I guess, preaching to the choir, or however, whatever
right,
you would say it. So they're innate in there. They want autonomy,
yeah.
and I deeply respect that. And that's exactly where I think this whole thing is really
Hopefully
shining.
we can promote this to the general public. This mindset that personal responsibility, autonomy is what we should aspire to.
Yeah.
Right?
Find your own truth. Don't always listen to everyone else.
Yeah,
find your own.
You got to learn. You got to learn how to discern between a salesman line and something that's right and true.
Yep.
And that's, nobody does it perfectly.
Yep.
That's for sure. I get overload sometimes.
Yeah.
There's far too much information happening.
But it's far too risky to allow someone else to make those decisions.
It is.
And
Exactly.
make those determinations.
Yeah.
It may take more. You may make mistakes, like you say.
I think everybody does.
And everybody does.
Yeah.
But it's far better that you make those mistakes than you allow someone else to make those decisions for you.
Yeah. It's no different in business. We have to do that in business all the time. Do the carrier that you're driving for, do they make all the business decisions and you have no choice but to just do whatever they say?
Exactly.
And no matter what your bottom line, if you see your account going less and less and less and less, maybe it's time to move to a different carrier or move to a different truck or do whatever it takes. It's your own destiny. The results are ultimately in your control.
Yeah.
Even if, and I've been in a situation where I've realized like I sometimes instigate my own failure by not fully participating in the choice and decision. I delegate sometimes too much, and then I say, okay, well, wait a minute, I want this to happen, that to happen, and that, a great example is I knew a guy who went into a maintenance shop, And he says, I don't care what it costs. I want this truck running in 3 hours, you know? And the answer to it was generally within 3 or 4 hours, that truck was out of there.
Yeah.
But the bill was through the roof. And then he can't complain.
Yeah.
He cannot complain. He cannot whine and complain because he set it up by his own words. And we got to watch what we say and do health-wise.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I know I don't know. I lost a lot of weight during COVID because I was high blood pressure and pre-diabetic and stuff like that, and so I lost a lot of. I gained some of it back now. I'm gonna blame you on that. You keep asking me out for dinner.
Yeah. So now you have to take your own.
We
just talked about this.
No, I don't want to.
Take responsibility for your own health care.
But that poutine is so good. You know. But our own autonomy. That it's that's what realistically. That's what I've learned from it. Is I have to take my medical.
And your own success is based on your decisions that you make. You don't allow somebody else to make those decisions for you.
We have, I have a lot of very successful clients, but occasionally I have clients who either go through bankruptcy or they lose a lot and then they, go to back as a company driver. Very few people who fail say, you know what, I made this mistake, that mistake, this mistake. They blame it on the carrier. They blame it on the dealership, on the maintenance shop, on the government for taxes or whatever it is. It's somebody else's fault.
Kind of like what you would, if you'd interview those people who are incarcerated right now.
Yeah.
It was somebody else.
I was set up. It's not, never
I was just holding the knife. I didn't really kill him.
The guy just ran into me 13 times.
If he wouldn't have said that, if he wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have responded that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. That's a classic. Yeah. Personal responsibility. And that, if we as a nation, individuals can take more personal responsibility, I think the government officials at some point in time would say, hey, wait a minute, we got to back off because the people are overtaking. They see an opportunity because people don't.
They allow
act.
them. Yeah.
They don't act. They just allow people to do it. And one of the things Freedom Convoy did was saying, no, look, we're calling it quits here. No more of this.
Yeah.
And realistically, I think society has to not have more freedom convoys, but they have to be more clear to say, listen, I'm taking autonomy for my life.
Yeah.
And I'm taking control of my life, my finances, my whatever it is, and I will do whatever it takes to be successful in whatever area that I want to focus on.
Yeah.
And the government cannot dictate what my future is going to be like. That's probably, if anything about the Freedom Convoy and these podcasts, that's the primary point: personal responsibility and autonomy, and but that's what independent operators are trying to do, to be independent and financially free, that kind of thing. Freedom, liberté. Great
in all parts of their life.
Yeah.
It was nice to see the one video I saw of the Texas convoy going right now. On the video, they were actually using the song that I had. One of the people donated one of these wireless speakers. Nice big one, right? And I had it hanging on my side mirror and playing "We're Not Gonna Take It" over and over and over. I still am not tired of that song. My wife is not even tired of that. It was never our favorite beforehand.
That's ZZ Top, isn't it?
Twisted Sister.
Oh, Twisted Sister.
Yeah. But you listen to the song, and it actually it's speaking to you in that situation.
Yeah, they had that playing when we were when just between the speaking when they were up there on the platform. We're not.
Oh, I had like impromptu little dance sessions. People would come up and they just start dancing, and But
amazing event
that was.
Do you have people call you up and talk to you and almost say, man, you were actually there, physically there,
Yeah,
My son
even
said,
this weekend I was at a show, talking to people, and the one person that I thought would have been totally on board kind of stepped back and got very quiet. But by the end of the weekend, there was almost a transformation just in talking, because I would always get little words in as far as how things really were like there. What you were fed, it was baby food. It was not the real thing. You were being fed such garbage. The people, while you were in Winnipeg, someone who supposedly greatly respected me from years ago as a foster parent was going on Facebook and demonizing everybody downtown Winnipeg. And I sent a message, to this person saying, I'm actually in Ottawa and it's very different. You're not seeing the truth.
Yes.
Oh, don't even talk to me, Ross. You're just, what's the word?
Indoctrinated?
No. Just,
You're brainwashed?
you feel justified almost, but you're the white person that's oh my goodness, sorry, complete mind
white
blank.
supremacist?
No, not even that. Just you feel entitled. You're just this entitled white person that has no idea what's going. Look at those poor people in Russia, Ukraine. Sorry, my mind is turning to mush today. But just the absolute venom spewed towards me because I was there from a person that said they respected me 2 years earlier.
Society is becoming more and more accepting of it, like as time goes by. And the verdict from the first judge, for sure. I call it first judge because they're going to appeal it, apparently.
I personally believe it'll take years. By that time, we'll have a change in government. It'll all get dropped.
Exactly.
That'd be my perspective.
For sure.
But there's a lot of the money is still being frozen, and the like. Now there is a lawsuit against some people, isn't it?
Yeah, the core. There's what was it? It's roughly around 32 million, I believe. Don't quote me on that. That each of the 11 original people are on the hook for if this court case goes through. It's like, what is it, 300 and some million or 200 and some million? I don't even know what the final amount is. But it's the supposed downtown businesses and the people that were affected. Well, the businesses had the ability to open. They chose not to. The ones that did also made a fortune.
And they were told to close by the local government, by the local police.
Exactly. The Thai restaurant was there ran out of food every night. And it was just a little mother and her daughter running this place. That was it, working themselves to the bone.
There's a lot of antagonism, and I'm sure that there might very well be individuals who are watching this podcast who still have deep emotions that against or for or against or whatever, and hopefully I see a change in that it's becoming less antagonistic in there. Primarily, I think, I try not to get involved politically because realistically, to some degree, doesn't matter who gets into power. It seems like nothing that dramatic changes, but there is hope for the future. I think because there's people just not standing up to some of the ridiculousness that's going on right now,
or they're not accepting.
They're
like
not
what
accepting.
I would love to say to anyone that's still hardcore against the convoy and what it stood for is take a step back, think about it, think that you want to know the truth. So find somebody who was there, find somebody who had firsthand experience, anybody, any one of the thousands upon thousands that were there, and just ask questions. Don't project, ask and listen. And if there's anything left up here, you will not leave the same person. You won't. But you have to be willing, and that's where both sides struggle. If you're not willing to listen, you won't have anyone willing to hear you.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
It's tough on a country, but I think we're getting out. There's countries have gone through worse. I think you look at United States with their Civil War. You know, when it comes to freedom of slaves and stuff like this is torn, and takes well over 100 years to repair. And that was a really deep rift.
That
you know,
was.
this is just. It's just vaccination or unvaccination, and government control and stuff like this. But I think as Canadians we're going to grow out of it and say never again. Because oftentimes there were some high contentious issues that separated some people, and now it's been 2 years basically, and there are some who said, you know what, I guess I was a little overboard or something like this, or denied that it ever happened, and we'll just be friends now.
Exactly.
That's another one, you know. But you know what? We're just going to get over this. Then the next question is, what are we going to do with our lives? And realistically, if we have personal autonomy, take responsibility for it, and elect people who want to be more responsible,
Right.
As a government, that's our future. I sure hope it is anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
In there. All right. Well, there's a lot we could talk for an awful lot more, but I think we've covered the basics, and I think we end on a place where I want to end. That's for sure.
Yep.
And I don't think this is going to tear apart our country. I think it's going to be something that we go through, and we'll just say, you know what? How do I say? Let's never be that mad at each other again. You know?
Exactly.
Maybe that's
it stretched us thin, but it needed to be done to build us stronger.
Yeah.
I think Canada needed to be woken up as far as where we were going slowly, all of a sudden became quick.
Yeah.
And if you weren't ever paying attention, you started to now.
Yeah.
You know.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for watching the podcast. You made it right to the end. Hopefully we've been somewhat entertaining and educational and stuff like that. And if you want to talk about it, you can go ahead and email me, or even call our line at times. Though we are quite busy during personal income tax season. We're a little bit running at full capacity. But hope you enjoyed yourself. Have a great trip. Subscribing to this channel provides you regular access to professional advice on independent operators. If you want to support us, like, share, and turn on that notification.